Okay, thanks everyone so much for coming. Sorry we're a slight bit delayed. So today we're going to talk about AMRC Open Research, and my name is Suzanne. I'm the research manager here at AMRC, and I'm here with Phil Dooner, who is the associate publisher at F1000.
Hi everyone.
So just briefly, what we're going to cover today, what AMRC Open Research is, why AMRC and our members have developed the platform, how publishing is going to work on AMRC Open Research and how that differs from standard journals or preprint servers, and how publishing can benefit you guys. If you've got any questions as we go along, pop them in the chat box. We might get back to them at the end. If there's some that we can answer quickly as we go through, we'll do that. But if not, we'll absolutely get back to all of those questions at the end. Okay, so firstly, kind of introducing AMRC Open Research very briefly. So it's a new open access publishing platform where any of you that are funded by any of the participating AMRC member charities can publish any of the results that you think are worth sharing. So what it's going to allow you to do is disseminate those results of your research without the traditional delays that the publication system can put into that process. It can reduce research waste and increase efficiency by making sure that any parts of the research that you've done can be published. And it can increase transparency and make it easier for you to support reproducibility by allowing you to publish the data alongside the research that you're submitting. So a little bit of background from me. Just click on it anyway. A little bit of background for me about AMRC for those of you that may not be aware who we are. So we were established in 1987 and we're the national membership body for health and medical research charities. So there's over 140 members based across the UK. All of them fund medical research to very high standards, and they have to do an audit based on the principles of research funding. So we make sure they're all funding kind of the highest standard research. We support them to deliver that research. We work with the policy environment to ensure that's as favourable as possible to charities and researchers. And we try and work to highlight the sector's contribution to the funding landscape and kind of champion impact. So in 2017, our members funded £1.6 billion worth of research in the UK. So that's more than either NIHR or MRC, and actually it's nearly half of all the publicly funded medical research nationally. We funded 17,000 researcher salaries, including 1,700 PhD students. We funded over 200,000 people in the UK recruited into clinical trials funded by our members, and around 31% of the non-commercially funded research in the NIHR portfolio, so essentially in the NHS, is funded by AMRC members. So collectively, our members are a huge player in the UK funding landscape, and they provide a lot of the kind of medical research funding to universities and hospitals that's happening. So why are we interested in launching a new publication platform? One of our members is the Wellcome Trust, and they launched the first funder-led platform back in 2016. We have been watching with interest how successful that's been and how that's been going, and a lot of our other members approached us to discuss whether we could kind of put together a joint platform that more of them could be involved in, and that would kind of mean that not everyone had to have an individual platform, so to kind of scale it appropriately. And that led to AMRC Open Research, which is what we're about to launch. So the benefits that we and our charities kind of see for publication in this way are many and varied, but the main ones I've outlined here are it allows them to maximise the value and impact of the public donations that they get in by making sure that you guys can all publish all of the aspects of the research that they funded. We know, and they know, that that's a struggle at the moment, publishing all of your null results, publishing duplicate or kind of replication studies, publishing things that are outside the scope of kind of the standard journals is quite hard. So this will allow you to publish kind of any of those things, but also things like software or new tools, methods, all of that. So literally any aspect of your research will be kind of available to be published. It also gives you more control. So there isn't an editor that's saying, based on the content of your article, you can or cannot publish it. So there's an editorial process that checks you're eligible and checks kind of the basic scientific parts of the research, but it doesn't make any decisions based on content. So it really frees you up to publish what you want and when you want to. The platform is helping shift the way research and researchers are evaluated by supporting your research being assessed based on its value rather than where it's being published. So we know that all of you traditionally have fought to publish in the highest impact journal possible, because that's how you've kind of been monitored and assessed. And this is part of a global movement now to kind of move away from that and ensure that people are allowed and recognised for publishing kind of wherever they want. The next kind of key point that is really attractive to the charities is that this makes research results completely freely available to everyone. So that includes those living with and affected by the conditions being studied and the public. Obviously, the charities are supported by the public, and those donations sometimes have traditionally gone into a black hole that the public doesn't see what's happening with them. So the more we can show people what's happening with the money that they've given and what kind of research results have come out of that, the better that is. The final kind of key point is that we're hoping that this will accelerate the progress of research and mean new insights and innovations become available to those who need them more rapidly. So cutting down on that time it takes to publication means people can build on your results more quickly and they can get to those patients that need them more. So they're kind of the key areas that our charities are interested in. So there's 24 AMRC members involved in this platform. We went out to all members and kind of asked their initial interest, and we're hoping that a lot more members will come on board in the coming years, but at the moment these are kind of the 24 that have decided to take this leap into doing things in a slightly new way and kind of pushing those boundaries a little bit. So we're really pleased with the number that are taking part, and as I said, kind of over the coming years we're hoping more of our members will join us and take part with these initial 24. But anyone funded by any of these 24 charities at the moment, or that has been funded by them in the past, will be able to publish on the platform.
I've got this really boring job.
So I think this is me. So, hi everyone, this is Phil Dooner. Sorry, we're just getting a few questions.
Yeah, we'll just do a few questions based on my section, and then we'll move on to Phil. All of you are currently muted because there's too many of you on the call to be able to have you all talking. So you can either type questions in the question box, or at the end we can kind of unmute individual ones of you. But at the moment we can't unmute all of you because there would be a lot of you talking over each other. I hope that's okay. If you've got issues that you need to talk to us about, just pop it in the chat box and we can see it. One of the questions that we've got is, will publication on the platform count as open access publication for REF? Yes, I believe it will.
Yeah, so I'll come on into it later, but yeah, publications on here, articles published here are published as they would be in any other journal, so they're open access. They'll have a DOI, so they're citable. So if you want to put those, upload those into your REF articles, that's fine to do that. Obviously, they still have to be judged within the sort of requirements of the REF framework, but they are eligible. And another question, which again we'll touch on, will publication on this platform prevent publication elsewhere? Yes, essentially because it's published and citable, it's permanently citable, it has a DOI, digital object identifier. That means that journals will be unlikely to accept this publication again. It's not a preprint server like bioarchives, which some people are used to. It's published as it would be in any other journal. So I'll talk through the model now, and then if there's any questions, we'll leave those till the end. So I just want to explain a bit about who F1000 are. So they're the publishing company behind this platform. So we initially started as an article recommendation service. F1000 stands for Faculty of 1000. So we used F1000 Prime to recommend articles to people. More recently, we sort of set up as a publishing company and started publishing our own platforms. So the first platform was F1000 Research, which was launched in 2013. So that's a platform for anybody to publish on. We've published around 2,000 articles since that was launched. Since then, as Suze mentioned, we started partnering with institutions and organisations to set up platforms for their members or grantees. So we have our funder platforms, the first one of which was Welcome Open Research. So that launched in November 2016, and I believe has published nearly 200 articles so far. In November last year, we partnered with the Gates Foundation and launched Gates Open Research. So I think that's published about 50 articles in that time frame. We have partnered with HRB, which is the Irish public funding body for biomedical research, which is really encouraging that we're sort of getting sort of government organisations on board with this. And then obviously we now have AMRC Open Research. So there are sort of funder platforms. We also have a few institutional platforms. We have MNI Open Research, which is the Montreal Neuroscience Institute. So they're really striving to be an open research institute, and this platform is part of that. We have UCL Child Health Open Research, which is for any child health coming out of UCL. And we have the African Academy of Sciences as well. So it's a way for anybody doing research in that organisation to publish stuff easily as well. So what's different about AMRC Open Research? So first of all, it's very fast. We can publish articles within a week, and posting slides can be published immediately. I'll come on later to what posting slides are. Essentially, we use a post-publication peer review model, which means that we can publish articles very quickly, and then the peer review happens after that. It's inclusive, so as Suze mentioned, all research outputs are suitable. So that includes traditional research articles that would be submitted to other journals typically, but also the stuff that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily immediately think to submit to those journals, or perhaps can be difficult to get published in those journals. So things like methods articles, software articles, data sets. We do a thing called data notes, which could be a single table or figure that wouldn't necessarily fit into a broader research narrative, but it might be of interest to somebody. That could be published as a single page manuscript and get that citable and get credit for that. We also do things like publish things like negative and confirmatory results. So all these little pieces of data that sort of fit into the jigsaw of research. So it's open, so it's fully open access. So it allows everybody to access the results, including charities, communities. So I think one of the benefits, particularly for charities, is that people are doing fundraising for this money. You know, they're running marathons or they're baking cakes. Quite often in traditional journals, they don't have access to the research that they have to fund. So by it being open access means that everybody has access. It's reproducible, so we ask for source data to be published alongside articles in order to let people reproduce that study if possible. There are obviously caveats to what can be what data can be published. So we never ask for private patient data to be published or privately owned data to be published. But where possible, yeah, we would like the data to be available as well. And it's transparent, so the peer review is completely open and author-led. And I'll show you in some later slides what that will look like. So this is our post-publication peer review model. So it's quite different to traditional journals, how they operate. So an article is submitted to us. As Suze mentioned, we don't have editors. So we're not making decisions based on how newsworthy or interesting an article is. We're essentially checking that the participating charities have approved this grant and funded this research. So we're essentially saying that they've done the editorial job for us. Having said that, we do some editorial checks on the article to make sure that we can legally publish it. So we make sure it's funded by the charities. We make sure it has appropriate ethical approval and consent. We make sure the underlying data is available, and we make sure that the article isn't published elsewhere and it isn't plagiarized or anything like that. At that point, the article is published. So as I mentioned before, it's published as it would be in any other journal. It has a digital object identifier, a DOI, so it's citable. It's not a preprint, it can't then be published elsewhere. So people can find that via Google Scholar or cite that article if they want to. At publication, publication triggers peer review. So again, because we don't have editors to find referees, we ask authors to suggest referees for us. We have a tool that can help them do that. But again, our editorial teams make sure that they are suitable, so they meet minimum sort of seniority requirements, and we make sure there are no conflicts of interest and that there are not close colleagues or collaborators with any of the authors. Because it's an open peer review model, all referee reports are published online and the referees are named, so readers can see exactly what referees have said about the article. At that point, because we mentioned it's an author-driven model, it's up to the authors to decide what they want to do with that information. So in most cases, an author would revise their article and submit a new version according to the referee's suggestions. But if they didn't necessarily agree with what the referees have to say with their article, they don't have to make those changes. But where they don't want to make those changes, we would ask that they respond to the referees to say why they don't want to make those changes. We don't put any limitations on peer review. So authors can revise their article as many times as they want. Referees can review the different versions of the articles as many times as they want. And authors can invite as many referees that they want as well. So if, for example, one referee really liked the article and one referee didn't like the article, then an author could ask for another referee to be invited, so to break that deadlock and make a decision that way. All versions of the article remain online and are linked together, and all referee reports remain online as well. So it's really about building up the conversation around a particular article. And as well, so I said that we don't have restrictions on the peer review process, but we do have some criteria imposed upon us for indexing in services such as PubMed Central and Scopus. So they said that in order for them to index the article, they need a minimum of 2 approved reports, or 1 approved and 2 approved with reservation reports. And I'll come on to the referee statuses in a second. I should also say that indexing in these services is sort of dependent of the article following, the platform undergoing a formal evaluation process by those services. So this is an example of an article that has just been published. So this is from Gates Open Research. And you can see clearly in the title details, we make it very clear to people that this is version 1 and it is awaiting peer review. So anybody sort of arriving at this article or seeing the article cited could at this time decide to wait before they cite the article, or even wait before they even read the article until it has undergone peer review. But we make it very clear to people that it hasn't undergone peer review yet. We provide metrics on the article, so the standard views and downloads, and once it generates some citations, they'll be displayed here as well. And we also provide alt metrics, which is article level metrics, things like how often an article is being shared on Facebook or Twitter, if it's been blogged about or included in any news articles, that will appear there as well. And as I mentioned before, the article is citable and it has a DOI. We also, importantly for charities, include grant information, so the charities get full credit for the published work. And this next slide is an example of an article that has undergone peer review and been revised. So you can see that the details in the title have now been updated. It clearly states now that this is version 2. 2 referees approved the article, and 1 referee continues to have some reservations. But again, we make it very clear what the status of that article is before you even read it. Again, this article is citable, it has a DOI. This version of the article actually has a separate DOI, but those DOIs are linked, so citations of different versions of the article still count towards citation count of the single article. We also display the peer review history on the right-hand side, and these contain links to all the different versions of the article as well. So you can see the first version of this article was published on the 6th of November. There were 3 referees reviewed it. All referees had some sort of concerns about the article, which is what the question mark stood for. The authors then went away, addressed those referee comments, submitted a revised version of the article, and all 3 referees subsequently re-reviewed the article, and 2 of those referees subsequently updated their reports to approve the article. 1 referee still has some reservations, in which case we would encourage the authors to revise the article again if they felt it was necessary. You can see underneath the referees are named on the article page, and you can click on the various links to view the reports. We also ask authors to describe in detail the changes they have made to the newest version of the article compared to the previous version. This is just an example of a referee report. So again, everything about the article is completely open, so you can see what the referees have said about the article. In this case, the referee report was written by 3 separate people. But unlike other journals, all referees get credit for that report. So we allow people to co-sign reports. If, for example, I'd ask someone in the lab to help them with this report, that person in the lab will get credit as well. We make the referee status obvious to people. And the referee report is also citable. So if there was any useful information in this report, people could cite that and use that as they might do an article. And we also count the number of times the referee report has been read. As I mentioned before, we encourage authors to respond to referees, and so that will be included at the bottom of the report once that is available. I also talked about referee ratings. So as well as a detailed report, we also ask referees to give simple referee ratings to an article. They can approve an article, which means the article is fine as it is. They can approve it with reservations, which in a traditional journal would be like minor revisions. So the article is ultimately fine, but there are some suggestions to make it better. Or they can not approve an article, which means the article needs some major revisions, or there is a flaw in the study design as it is currently. If an article did get not approved reports, we wouldn't unpublish the article. But again, using the examples I showed you earlier, we will make it very clear in the citation details, in the peer review history on the article page, that article had not been approved during peer review. So again, readers could decide whether or not they want to read that article or not based on that information. I talked a bit about requirements for indexing. So in order to be indexed in PubMed, Central or Scopus, following the formal evaluation process, an article needs a minimum of 2 approved ratings, or 2 ticks, or 1 approved and 2 approved with reservation ratings. So you can see that the article from the previous page wouldn't have been indexed on the first version, but would have been indexed on the second version, having received those 2 approved ratings. I also want to talk quickly about some of the other output types that AMRC Open Research publishes. So we also, as well as the traditional peer-reviewed articles, we also publish non-peer-reviewed content. So this includes posters, slides, and documents. So these are also fully citable, but they are not peer-reviewed, so they're not indexed in places like PubMed Central. Posters and slides can be published immediately. We then do some checks, and then the DOI is assigned after publication. Documents includes research outputs such as policies, guidelines, and workflows. They are published after some minor eligibility checks, but it's not the same. They're not checked in the same detail as articles are. And some people asked earlier, we are, unlike peer-reviewed articles, we are able to accept posters, slides, and documents that relate to previous publications or are unpublished elsewhere. So we're not quite as strict with these other outputs as we are with the peer-reviewed articles. And this is just an example of a poster publication. So you can see there isn't quite as much detail as there will be for a peer-reviewed article, but we still provide the usual usage data, and they are provided with a citation and a DOI following the editorial checks. But you'll notice that it doesn't have the full peer review history because these are not peer reviews. To end on, I just want to give you an example of Welcome Open Research, which Suze mentioned at the start of the webinar. So this was our first sort of funder platform that we did in partnership with the Wellcome Trust. Before this launched, I think Wellcome had given themselves a target of around 30 articles in the first year. You can see from this that in the first year, Wellcome published 142 articles, so it really exceeded expectations. They included more than 1,000 authors from more than 300 institutions represented. I want to touch a bit on peer review. Because it is open peer review, people sometimes have concerns that it can be difficult to find referees or the peer review process will take longer. We've not found that to be an issue with our other platforms. So you can see from the table that on average, Welcome Open Research, articles in Welcome Open Research receive their first referee report within 14 days. and they received their second peer review report within 25 days. On an average, they were indexed in PubMed Central within 33 days, so that means they needed at least 2 positive referee reports. On those 142 articles, they received more than 400 reviewer reports. And there's always a question of how much are people taking notice of these referee reports. But of those referee reports, they were viewed more than 9,000 times. So I think people really are engaging with the articles and with the peer review process, which is really encouraging to see. I also think that Welcome Open Research for Wellcome funded researchers was the 5th most popular publication output for all Wellcome funded researchers. So it's really encouraging to see the Wellcome grantees using that. And we hope that the AMRC grantee or the AMRC charities grantees will use this platform in the same way. So that's the end of the talk. I've seen a few questions popping up, so I will try and answer as many of those as I can. So scroll up. So this is a question about the platform helping to shift the way researchers are evaluated. And essentially, to paraphrase this question, is will this platform help change the way that researchers evaluated, knowing that some sort of evaluation committees are fairly stuck in their ways and use the traditional methods of where an article is published and impact factors to do that. So the answer to that question is yes, we realise that there is a way of a traditional way of judging research based on where it was published. I don't think at the moment this platform is going to change that overnight. I think there are several funders at the moment, including Gates and Wellcome, and some of these AMRC member charities, who have made a commitment to say that we are not going to judge the article based on where it is published. We are going to judge the article purely on what's included in the article. So it's very encouraging that the funders are saying that, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that institutions do that as well. So
just one thing to say on that as well. In the last ref, the guidelines to committees actually stated that they shouldn't take any consideration of impact factor. We haven't seen the new guidelines for the next ref, but we expect that will be the same again. So actually ref panels are not meant to take into account where the article is published. How much that actually happens in the real world is a different question, but it is a guideline that they're not meant to take that into account.
So like I said, I don't think things are going to change overnight, but there is positive steps in that direction. And like I said, you don't have to publish on here if you feel that pressure to publish in impact factor journals. It's fine to do that. This is an alternative to those traditional journals as well. And
one of the things we've been saying with the charities is we completely understand if you're heading for a Nature paper, you're going to publish in Nature. Like we don't expect that that's going to change overnight. But if you're publishing somewhere with a kind of less prestigious title or lower impact factor, this can be a completely kind of viable alternative. And the charity, like Phil said, all the charities are kind of moving away from using impact factor to do any assessment of the research output.
Another question, will this be available online? Yes, we will be uploading a video in the next few days, so we will send a link around to that. Can we publish an AMRC Open platform if the data is already published in a peer-reviewed journal? Yeah, we won't allow articles that have been published elsewhere. We would publish related data. So, for example, that data didn't end, if you did some data that didn't end up in your final research article, that data would be eligible to publish on here, but we wouldn't republish the same data. There's no question, are publications limited to what is funded by a member charity? Yes, essentially. We will only accept research that is directly funded by or co-funded by one of the participating charities. So if you receive funding from one of the charities but wants to publish another piece of work, that wouldn't be eligible in this case. Question about what happens in relation to qualitative source data, or interviews may give away the identity of participating organisations or individuals. We would not ask that any private or identifying data be published online. If the data can't be identified, we would recommend a controlled access repository. If that isn't possible, we would recommend sort of, I guess, contact details of an institutional ethics board or someone separate from the authors who is able to control access to that data. Do original head data have to be included? So we don't actually host the data ourselves, but we can recommend suitable repositories in order to host your data alongside the articles. Yes, can you have more than 3 reviewers, and does this affect indexing? No, it does not affect indexing. You can have as many referees as you want to. All the indexing you're looking for are those 2 approved reports, or 1 approved and 2 approved reservation reports. Why are only some articles sent to PubMed? PubMed are essentially saying that they will not accept articles that have not passed peer review, so that gets sort of a quality control PubMed. We found that on the last slide I showed you, the majority of articles end up in PubMed anyway, and those that aren't in PubMed yet tend to be the case because they haven't completed the peer review process. We found that on the most part of our other platforms, researchers are really engaging with the publication process and making their article as good as it can be, so they do end up getting indexed there. Is there a charge for publishing on this platform? Yes, because it's open access, we charge article processing charges. They're quite a lot cheaper than traditional or other publishing platforms. I think they can be as little as £170, I think over to £850. It's dependent on article length, so the maximum length article will be £850, which is still a lot cheaper than other traditional journals. There are no mechanisms in place to cover those costs centrally, but the various charities have different open access policies. Some will cover article processing charges and some don't. So I would say check with your charities about whether you are eligible to have those costs covered for you. Have we discussed the approach with the NIHR? I think they're aware of us. We're not having direct conversations with them as such. So I think that's the bottom of the questions now. Apologies if I've missed any questions out in the rush. We will go back and sort of make sure we've covered everything and email you directly. But yeah, I think if there are no further questions, then I think we'll leave it there. So thank you everyone for joining today. I hope it's been useful to you. If you do have any questions, please do get in touch. My name is Phil Dooner. My email address is included on that last slide. So yeah, please do get in touch.
Thank you, everyone.